I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Getting to Know Android Phones and Tablets, which is part of our Getting Started with Tech series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the library and your host for today. So thank you all for joining us. I first wanted to go over some Zoom features available to you. There are some buttons or icons at the bottom of your screen. On the far left, you have the options that control your sound or your speaker. Then in the middle, you have a couple of other buttons that control what you can do during this webinar. Don't worry about seeing your video. The only videos you can that can be seen here are me and our presenter, Rebecca. So back to the buttons, you'll see three. The first one is chat, which looks like a little comment bubble, and you're welcome to use chat to ask any questions for our instructor, and I'll relay the questions to her verbally. You can also ask us to repeat any demos, ask questions, or just have conversations with us. We also have a raised hand button. You could use this so we can unmute you so you can speak and ask your question out loud if you prefer. I believe someone's already demonstrated this for us. We understand that typing out a question might not be as easy as just speaking and asking your question, so that's definitely an option. Throughout the webinar, we will be pausing for questions, so you can interrupt us at any time, again, by typing in the chat or raising your hand. Live transcriptions are enabled. You can see them at the bottom. You can turn them off and on by hitting the little CC button. Let's see here. I will put a link to the handout in the chat in just a moment here, but I believe it's going to be sent out after the webinar as well. And they'll also include a link to the recording once that's public. And if you want to come to the library in person, we could also print out the presentation for you. So I think I've covered everything. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca Van Dusen, who is one of our amazing tech presenters here at the library. And once again, she will guide us today when it comes to getting started with our Android phones and tablets. So Rebecca, whenever you're ready, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you for that lovely introduction, Jordan. Yes, today we are covering Android. We will be demonstrating on the tablet today, but of course, if you have an Android phone, that's just fine. If you don't have an Android device, that's okay too. We have a lot of people that attend these types of workshops just to get a feel for these devices and see if maybe they want to purchase one in the future. So yeah, and we welcome, of course, any level of knowledge. Some people may just have gotten one and they're just wanting to learn how to use it, or there may be users that have had an Android device for a number of years as well. But let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's go ahead and share my screen, and we'll share the PowerPoint here. And of course, Android is a little different than Apple in that there are more brands. So you might have an Android device and it might be a Samsung, it could be a Google device, it could be LG, so it could be any one of those brands or even a different brand. Basically, Android is not Apple, it's just a different operating system for a phone. But I hope you're seeing my PowerPoint there.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Let me get into the slideshow. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about the phone buttons and tablet buttons for Android devices. Now, of course, your device may be different than our tablet, of course, but for the most part, a lot of these things will go across multiple devices. We're going to talk about the lock screen. We're going to talk about how to navigate the home screen. We're also going to talk a little bit about settings, the task manager, apps, and widgets. And of course, if you have any other questions too while we're doing the demo, feel free to ask. Right, so for us, of course, we're doing the demonstration on an Android tablet, but there are Android phones. So for instance, you'll see there's a Samsung phone up on the screen and a Sony tablet. We have a Samsung Galaxy tablet. That's our particular model. And again, like I was saying before, they do kind of go across brands. So you might encounter a Google phone that has Android on it. You might encounter a Sony tablet or an LG tablet. So they could be different brands rather than just Samsung. But I'd say Samsung is a pretty popular version of Android devices. All right, so let's talk about buttons. So you're going to have a couple of buttons on your device, most likely. Let me switch over to my camera view so that you can see while I'm pointing these out on my actual device here. So let me stop my share. I'm going to switch my video here. All right, so you should be seeing my tablet there.
Yes, we can see it.
Cool. So for us, we have a couple of buttons. So there's a couple of buttons that are on the top of the device. Let me see if I can show you what those look like. So yes, here, let me see if I can focus that a little bit. And of course, we have a Samsung. Let me focus that. It's a little hard to focus just because it's so up close, but there is a button here up at the top, and then sort of a button that's a little bigger. It's a toggle button. That's your volume up and volume down. And this smaller button here is our power button. So that's going to turn off or on our device. It's also going to wake our device up or put it to sleep. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. We also have a button at the bottom of our tablet here, right there in the center. That's a home button. Now that's actually a physical button on the device, but there are also a couple other buttons here that we'll be able to interact with by just touching on them. But those are flush. We can't actually feel the button. So we have our home button here, and then let me see if there's any other button on here. I don't see one. Yeah, so I just see the power and the volume button, and then our home button down there at the bottom. And of course, yours might be a little different. Your home button might be differently shaped. Your power button might be on the top of your device rather than on the side, like with ours. So just keep that in mind that they're going to be slightly different. Now, if you want to turn off your device, you would hold down that power button. So if I hold down my power button, I would have the option to either power off or restart. Or I can also turn this so that it's sleeping. So sleeping just kind of means that your tablet is still on, but the display is not on. So I just would tap on the power button to do that. And then I would tap it again to wake it back up. So let me do that. There we go. And now we're back up. So that's kind of a good way, maybe if you want to keep your device on, but you're not using it presently, and you maybe are doing something else, you could just put it to sleep, and then it will sort of save more of the battery. You won't have to worry about that running down. Any questions about buttons? I know we had one earlier that I hope we answered the question with.
No questions at the moment.
All right. Now, as we were saying before, we can turn our device so that it's sleeping. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to just tap on that power button. Now, when you turn your device off and you power it back on, or you put it to sleep and then wake it back up, you might encounter a lock screen. Let me switch back to my PowerPoint so you can see that. For me, it's not activating right now, but let me switch it to our PowerPoint and I can show you what a lock screen should look like. Come on. There we go. So yours may look similar to this. It might say something along the lines of swipe screen to unlock. And you may have to enter something in to get into your device. So for instance, you may need to put in a passcode or a PIN. Some devices will also let you just enter it through your fingerprint. So you may have something called Touch ID or fingerprint identification. Some of the newer devices or more expensive devices may have that. Some devices also have facial recognition. So it may scan your face to make sure that it's you before it actually lets you into your device. And you don't have to have like a lock screen. Some people will just, like if they're just using their device at home and they don't take it anywhere, they won't put a lock screen because, it's another step to get in. But I do recommend that if you take your tablet out or if you travel with it or anything like that, you probably do want to make sure you have some sort of security, whether that be a passcode or like fingerprint ID, whatever your device has on it, just so you provide that extra step first, like if you lose your device, or just so you keep your security there. Yeah, most devices will come with that security measure in by default. So if you want to turn it off, you'll probably have to go into your settings, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about settings. For the most part, I do recommend that you have that on unless you really feel like you don't need it, just to protect yourself. You never know who could get a hold of your stuff. All right. So let's talk more about that home button. So your home button can do a lot of stuff. It can bring you to your home screen. So maybe you're inside of an app and you want to go back to your home screen. You can touch the home button and it will bring you back to that home screen. Let me switch to my demonstration and we can actually show that. So let me go back here. All right. So here's my tablet. Again, my home screen, or I'm sorry, my home button is right there. Yours may be in a different spot, or it might look different. But for us, maybe we're inside of an app, maybe we're reading something in Hoopla, and we want to get back to our home screen to get into something else. All we need to do is just tap on our home button. I know it's a little hard to see. Let me see if I can brighten this up a little bit and see that button. You can't really see it too well, but let me tap on it and we're going to go back home. There we go. Oh, my orientation is a little bit wonky. So again, you're just going to tap that home button. It's going to bring you back home. Let me get into, say if you were in your settings button or settings app, I keep saying button, settings app, you'll just hit your home button and you'll get back home. So again, your home screen is just going to have all of your apps in it. You'll also be able to do a couple things from here. You can do a search. You can change some of those settings quickly, and we're going to talk about that as well. Let me lower that a little bit. And your home button, you can also activate voice command. So if you have, for instance, your Google Assistant, you may be able to ask your Google Assistant a question. So for us, we have a Google Assistant button right up here on our home screen. Now you may not have this on your device, but ours does. So if we tap on that little microphone there, we can ask Google a question. So for instance, you could ask what the weather is today. Let's try that. What's the weather today?
Today's forecast for Champaign is 70 degrees and sunny.
So this is just using our location to figure out what our weather is. And of course, you could ask it to do anything really. It's just basically you're doing a Google search with your voice. And you can also use that bar there to actually search Google as well. So maybe you're looking for something and you want to just jump quickly into your Google search. You can do that right from there as well. Any questions about the home screen or the home button?
No questions at the moment.
Okay. So you may also notice down here at the bottom, there's a couple of icons as well as some little dots kind of above it. You'll see a white dot. It's hard to see, but it's actually in the shape of home. So like, for instance, like an actual house, or some people think that it looks like home plate, like baseball. That's that white dot there. This is giving us an indication that this is our first home screen. And if I were to swipe over, let me focus that again. If I were to swipe from this screen to the right here to our next screen, it's going to change that dot. Sorry, let me lower the brightness a little bit. It's going to change that dot to the next position. So it's kind of indicating to me that I'm on a different screen. You may have more than one dot. You may have more than two dots. It just depends on how many home screens you have. So you may have a lot of apps that you've maybe moved to a second screen or a third screen, and those will pop up down here. And as you rotate through those screens, that dot will change positions. Let me brighten that back up just a little bit. And then to the left of the home screen is another sort of icon. It looks like two lines. If I were to swipe to that line or tap on it, let's see what happens here. Come on. Oh, I think I accidentally hit some cameras. Let me go back. I think this is actually some sort of like, yeah, okay. This is not something we're covering, but it's called the Flipboard. I'm not an Android user myself, so I'm not quite sure what this feature is, but I think it may just be something that's native to some Android devices. And I can include more information about that if anybody has a question. I'll do a little more research and include that with the email that goes out later. But basically, that's just going to kind of give you a quick preview of where you are on your device. And then on the bottom here, you have apps that are more stationary. So if you were moving between different home screens, these particular apps would stay put as you flip through the screens. So it's kind of useful to put apps down here if you use them more frequently and you want to be able to access them easily. And of course, you can move these as well. We'll talk about moving apps, but all of this is really customizable. So if you wanted to move an app off of this area, you can. If you want to move an app onto that area, you can as well. So that's what's nice about smartphones and tablets. They're really customizable. All right.
Rebecca, we do have a comment. Someone said info on the Flipboard would be helpful to me. Thanks.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me write that down so I don't forget. All right. So I'll definitely do a little more research on that and include that with the email that goes out to everybody. Or I can even, if we have time, look up and see what it is after we cover everything today. All right, so let's talk about notifications next. So notifications are those things that you get like messages or like alerts from certain apps that you may want to look at. Android will consolidate them onto a notification screen. So there's a couple of different ways to see your notifications. So for us on our tablet, to see our notifications, we can swipe down from the center top of our screen. So if I swipe down from the center top, I'm going to see a screen that pops. Let me lower the brightness here. I'm going to see some icons coming up, and I also see notifications. So this is sort of a quick access menu where I can get into certain things, like I can change my volume or I can connect to Bluetooth, but I can also see my notifications from this screen. So for instance, it looks like we have a notification from YouTube, and I can also jump into our settings for my notifications. So maybe I want to, not see YouTube notifications anymore, or I want to see notifications from certain apps. I can change that in my settings right from here. You can also do it from your lock screen. Let me see if my lock screen is going. No, okay. I'm not sure how to get that lock screen back. I think after you open it up, it like doesn't need your information anymore. Let me see. I'll have to look that up. But basically on your lock screen, you'll see a couple of small icons, and this is in the PowerPoint as well. And you basically just tap on those icons and that's going to get you to your notifications. But the way I do it that's easiest is just to swipe down from the center middle of your home screen and you'll get that notification bar that pops down. Any questions about notifications?
No questions right now.
Okay. Let's go ahead and jump into settings. So let's talk about settings. So settings, of course, are going to be things that you can customize. So for instance, you can change your background wallpaper, you can change your volume, connect to Wi-Fi. There's tons of stuff in settings. We're not going to cover everything. We're just going to cover a few things. But I recommend on your own time that you go into your settings menu and just explore, because it's really going to do you a lot of knowledge. Because of course, as we scroll through, there's just so many things I could click on and get into. And let me show you how I got into settings. Excuse me. Let me take a drink of water here. So for us, our settings button is right here on our home screen. It looks sort of like a gear, and this is sort of universal over a lot of different devices. So if you have a different version of Android or a different device, yours may look slightly different than ours, but for the most part, it will look like a gear. And that's sort of the universal symbol. Even on Apple devices, it still kind of looks like a gear. So I would just tap on that to open it up. And then it's going to take me into my settings menu where then I can go and explore, change settings, etc. So for here, like I was saying before, you can connect to the internet. So for instance, if we click our connections menu, we'll be able to connect to Wi-Fi. We can also connect to Bluetooth. So right now we're connected to Champaign Public Library just because we're here at the library. But if I tap on Wi-Fi, any other network that I could connect to would pull up in a list here. So for instance, if you're at home right now and you're in your Wi-Fi settings, you might see other networks pop up or even your own personal network that you could connect to. So yours may have a big list, a small list. It's just dependent on where you are. It's just gathering the other networks in your area. The same for Bluetooth. If you tap on Bluetooth and you turn it on, now Bluetooth is what you use to connect to something wirelessly. So for instance, Bluetooth, you can connect to headphones wirelessly, you can connect to keyboards, mice, TVs. Sometimes you can even connect to cars. So I have sort of a new-ish car, it's a 2017, but it has a Bluetooth connection. So I can actually connect my phone to my car via Bluetooth. So that may be something you could look into, and you can listen to music, you can listen to podcasts, or even like library materials. I listen to a lot of audiobooks through Bluetooth through my car. It's really convenient. So for us, what's coming up in devices is this JBL Flip. That is a speaker that we own at the library that we can connect to via Bluetooth. So if you go into your Bluetooth menu, of course, yours may look different depending on what's around you. And usually for Bluetooth, if I'm not actively using it, I will turn it off, just because if you have it on, it's going to try to seek out connections with devices and it may wear down your battery. So I usually keep mine off unless I'm directly connected to something or looking for a connection. Now, again, with connecting to something, keep in mind, especially with Wi-Fi, there could be any Wi-Fi network out there that someone's created and they're trying to get people to connect. So keep in mind, if you're on your Wi-Fi networks list, there may be networks out there that are not safe. You may want to look into what they are if you're not sure about what you're connecting to. So, of course, ours is, you don't need like a password or anything to join, but some Wi-Fi networks do require a password. So keep that in mind. Yeah. Any questions about connections, either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi?
No questions at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see one just came in. I see an icon shaped like a lock. Who is secure?
Yeah, so if you're, for instance, in your Wi-Fi connection settings, you may see a network that has a lock on it. That usually indicates that that network needs a password to enter. So you may have to enter the password that the Wi-Fi is set up with to connect. Now, of course, some Wi-Fi is public. Like for instance, if you walk into the library or like a Starbucks or something, you may find just like free Wi-Fi. But again, keep in mind that if you're connected and it's no password, that means that anybody can connect. So keep in mind if maybe you're doing something with personal information, or like maybe you're trying to connect to your bank's website, I maybe would think about not doing that on a public Wi-Fi network. You may want to do that on your secure network at home. So yes, a lock will indicate that you need a password to join, if that helps answer that question for you.
I believe so. Thank you.
Yeah. And there is a pretty quick way to join as well. Like I was saying before, from our home menu, our home screen, I'm sorry, if you swipe down and you get to that quick access menu, let me lower the brightness a little bit. You're going to see some icons up at the top. So these are going to help us connect or disconnect from things. So this kind of icon that looks like almost like a radar or a signal, that's our Wi-Fi icon. If I tap on that and hold, that will bring us to our Wi-Fi settings. Let me go back. I can also turn it off just by tapping on it. So now that it's gray, that means I'm disconnected. If I want to connect again, I can tap on that until it's blue. It's going to connect to Champaign Public Library because that's what I was connected to. But if you're somewhere where you're not sure where the networks are, I would just go into your settings from the settings app instead of the quick access menu. You can also connect to Bluetooth. That's this sort of icon that looks like a bee with little wings in the back. Kind of almost looks like scissors too. That's the Bluetooth icon. So if I wanted to connect, I could just tap on that. I have a couple of other things I can do from this menu as well. Oh, that's weird looking. Let me see if I can fix that a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. So of course you see my Bluetooth. I can actually turn on airplane mode as well. I can turn on a flashlight, do not disturb, blue light filter, and I can also adjust my brightness of my screen by swiping this. So I can, let's see if it will let me here. There we go. I can adjust my screen brightness. Yours may look slightly different again, depending on your device, but this is just sort of a quick way to get in some of those settings that you use frequently. And then I think that's all I have to cover with the quick access menu. Yes. And you can also, of course, adjust your screen brightness from your settings menu. If you go into your settings and then you go into your display, then you'll see this slider bar here that you can adjust bright or dark, depending on what you like. Now, if you have your screen brightness all the way up, keep in mind you might be running through your battery pretty quick just because it's taking a lot of power to keep it lit up. Usually if I'm not needing it too bright, I'll keep it in the middle or down lower, especially when it's at night. I like to keep it lower just because it helps my eyes. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can customize as well. You can customize screen timeout. So screen timeout's pretty useful if you're using your device for a lot and you want to keep the screen from going to sleep. You can change that here. So for us, we have it after 10 minutes of no activity, it will turn itself off, but you can change it as well. Maybe you want to change it to 5 minutes or even 15 seconds it goes down to. I usually leave that one at the most I can when I'm doing the webinar, but I usually want to make sure that it will go to sleep eventually because otherwise it's just going to be using up my battery. But again, settings are customizable, so it depends on you and what you like to do. Any questions about settings?
No questions, but I am enjoying your descriptions of the icons, Rebecca. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. All right, so let's go back home. I'm just going to tap on that home button.
Oh, I think we do have a question that just came in, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
They're saying my wife's new Moto phone screen times out after about 30 seconds, even though the time is set much longer. Ideas for something else to change.
Let me go into settings real quick and make sure I'm seeing the right thing. Display, screen timeout. Yeah, it should be under the screen timeout. If yours is saying 30 seconds and it's going much longer than that, I might check in and see if you can find a manual for your phone or see if you can check with the maker of your phone and see if they know why it's doing that. Because if it's saying, if it's saying something different than what you're experiencing, you might have to reach out to them and see what's up. That's what I would suggest, because without actually seeing your device in person, it's sort of hard to say. That's what's tough about Android is they're sort of different from device to device. So my version of screen timeout may be slightly different than yours. It's hard to say. But what I would do is definitely reach out to either where you bought your phone or the people who make it and see if they can tell you what's going on.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let me go back home here. So let's talk more about apps. So of course, apps are all of these little icons on our home screen that's going to let us run programs or, for instance, get into our gallery for where our pictures are or take pictures or our calendar, maybe. That's another app that's pretty popular. But of course, to open an app, all you're going to do is tap on the app icon. So for instance, maybe we wanted to jump into Hoopla. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to tap on Hoopla. And this is one of our apps that we have through the library that lets us read books, listen to books, watch movies, TV, and listen to music. I use Hoopla pretty often. But yeah, you just tap on the app to open it up. And I should say, if you open up an app and you click on the home button, the app is not actually closed. It's still running in the background. So keep in mind that if you have a lot of apps open, that it may run down your battery. There is a way to open a task manager so that you can close apps. So let's talk about how to do that. So from our home screen, we're going to tap on the task manager button. So let's see if we can get that activated. So on the side here, for us, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. It looks like, let's see if we can focus that a little bit. So of course, this is our home button, but this button here is our task manager button. And depending on your device, it may look different. It may look like lines. It may look like, I think there's one that looks like just a square. Some devices look different, but usually you'll see a home button, an arrow, or sometimes a triangle, or like a square button. So usually the square button is our task manager button, and that will help us jump between apps or close out of apps. So let's touch on that and see what it does. Let me focus this again. All right, so I'm going to tap on our task manager and see what apps I have open. So now I have my task manager screen open, and these are the apps that I have open currently. If I wanted to close all of the apps, I could click close all. But if I just wanted to close maybe one or two, all I have to do is swipe up on the app. So let's go ahead and do that as an example. So just to close them out, you just swipe up, swipe up. Now yours may be slightly different. It might have an X button in the corner or something like that. That will help you close it as well. If I hit close all, that will just close all of them out. Let me open up a couple apps again and show that you can also flip between apps. Let's go into some of our library apps here. So sometimes I use Task Manager if I'm inside of an app already and I want to switch to a different app quickly that I know is open already. So let's say we were inside of Hoopla and we were looking for a movie and we were wanting to get into Canopy. Let me hit Task Manager because I know we have Canopy open already. And now I can just jump into Canopy by tapping on it. Now, of course, this only works if you know that that app is already open and running in the background. So you can switch between apps that way. So it kind of saves you time. You don't have to hit home and hunt for the app you're looking for. You can kind of just pop between them using that Task Manager button. And of course, to close them out, again, I'm going to swipe up or hit close all if I wanted to close all of them. You'll also see some apps down here at the bottom. Let me see if I can lower the brightness here. Some Android devices have these apps pop up as just sort of a quick way to get into some stuff, like a quick way to jump into your settings, or maybe you wanted to make a Google search or, use your calculator. You can do that as well. And it looks like we can also search here. Let's tap on that. So I think that's going to do a search. Let's see. Let's type in Libby. So it's going to search our device. Let me brighten that up a little bit. It's going to search our device, but I think it might also search, let's see what happens, the internet. Okay, yes, looks like it's also searching the App Store, and you can also do search using Google. So maybe I wanted to search for Libby using Google. That's another way to do it from your task manager. Any questions about Task Manager?
We'll give it a second. I don't see any questions at the moment. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about how to move apps. So as I was saying before, there's a lot of ways you can customize your home screen. And one of the main ways is moving apps. So how do I move something? Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to tap on an app and you're going to hold it and then drag it to where you want it to go. So let's try to move, let's move the gallery app to somewhere new. So I am going to tap and hold. Now I'm using a pen that has a stylus on the end just because it's a little easier for me to do that rather than my finger. Moving apps is one of the things that I struggle with sometimes. Apps don't want to go to where they want to go when I do it. So it does take practice, even for me. So if I tap it, you're going to see this little menu pop up, and that's going to let you know that it's ready to move. And we're going to talk about a little more what this menu is, but right now we're just going to move it. So we're going to tap and hold, and then we're just going to move it to where it's going to go. So you'll notice it kind of pops up these little suggestions for where you can move it, and it's going to give me some space. So we can move it. Let's move it up in the top corner here. Once I'm ready, I can just let it go. And now it belongs in that corner. I want to clean this screen up a little bit. Let me move this one as well. There we go. So again, you're just going to tap and hold it. If I wanted to move something down here, I can do that as well. So maybe I wanted to put my calendar down there. I think it may be full. Let me move something off of there. So there are only a certain number of apps you can put. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can also move, maybe I wanted to move my camera off of there. You'll notice in the bottom here too, there's another app that's kind of gray with white dots in it. That is actually where we can jump into the list of all of the apps that we have on our device. So most devices will have that button. It sort of looks like, 9 dots. Yours may look slightly different depending on your device, but they should look pretty similar across devices, across brands, I should say. And of course, you can search for an app too, maybe like we were doing before. You could search for Libby and then pop right into Libby by just tapping on it. You can also create a folder. So for us, we have a couple folders up on the screen. Let me see if I can lower that brightness just slightly. So we have a folder with Google Apps in it. We have a library folder, Microsoft Office. So folders are super easy. It's similar to moving an app. What you're going to do is you're going to hold down on an app. So let's put the, let's create a folder that's got some other Google apps in it. So let's put Google Chrome and Google Drive together into their own folder. So what you'll do is you'll select the app you want to put in a folder and you're going to tap on it. Let's see, there we go. And then we're going to move it right on top of another app and let go. And now you'll see that those two apps are in their own folder. And of course, we can name our folder as well. So we could name this, oops, I want to say Google Apps, and then hit done. And now our folder is called Google Apps. And of course, we could change that again if we wanted to. And then I just tap on the outside of the folder to get back home, or you can tap the home button. And if we wanted to delete the folder, all we need to do is just move the apps out of the folder and it will delete itself. So let's see if we can move those out of here. Come on. See, this takes practice. It should let me take it out. There we go. Looks like if I move it to the top right corner, it will let me do it. And of course, if I wanted to like add something into a folder after I created it, I can do that as well. So maybe I wanted to add something into the Google folder. I can just tap and hold and just drop it in there like that. And then of course I can see it there, and I can adjust where these are as well. Maybe I wanted to move this to the top of the list. Then I could do that and hit home when you're done, and it should finish creating that folder for you. Any questions about folders or moving?
I do have a question about preloaded apps. So they said my Galaxy tablet came preloaded with a lot of apps that I don't think I'll ever need. To clear drive space, I want to remove some, but I have heard that removing some apps will cause operating problems. How can I, so I'm trying to scroll here. How can I tell which apps are safe to uninstall?
That's a good question. I think that Android probably has a list, probably on their support page, about apps that you would want to make sure you don't delete. Usually with smartphones and tablets, they don't allow you to delete apps that are essential. So I think maybe if we try to delete the settings app, let's do that and see what happens.
I think that's exactly the case, Rebecca.
Let me try actually and see what Hoopla is gonna. Yeah, okay. So deleting apps is, of course, something that you're going to want to do. So for example, if we hold down and see that menu on Hoopla, it says uninstall. But if we do the same thing for settings, which is of course essential to the device, right? It's not giving us an option to delete that. So usually you can kind of tell if it's essential for your device if it has no option to delete it. Like for us, of course, Hoopla is not going to be essential, so it's going to give us the option to uninstall it. And usually if you're not sure, I would say Google is your friend. Try to Google the app and see, you know, is X app required on my device? Is X app going to be okay to delete? Something like that. And we can help with those searches as well. If you're not sure, you can always send us, you know, your questions, and we can try to make a determination of where you can go to look for that information. I'm sure that Google has some list somewhere. I'm not an Android user, so I'm not 100% sure, but they do have a good support page. But yeah, in my experience, if you're trying to delete an app that's essential, it just simply won't let you delete it.
Yeah, I've been in the same boat. Like I just try to download or delete my phone app on my smartphone and it wouldn't let me do it. So
yeah, usually they don't want you getting too far into the back end of things. It's more user friendly than a computer in that aspect, because I mean, in the computer you could accidentally delete something,
right,
but with tablets it won't really let you.
They say thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let's go over that deleting app thing because we went over that pretty quick. Let's talk about how to delete an app. Again, what I would do is I would just tap on an app and hold down until that menu comes up. So let me tap and hold. Then I could, it's not giving me the option to uninstall, but let me click on app info and see what happens. Disable, let's see. Does it give me an option? It's just saying disable. What does that mean? I think disable may be the same as uninstall or delete. I'm gonna look more into that. Let me see if I try to delete Photoshop, what happens. So that's not even giving me an option. I think you can also get in through your Google Play Store and delete Let me see. Library. This doesn't seem like the right way. How do you delete apps, Jordan? Is this the way you do it? Like if you don't physically hold down on it and click delete?
Or I go into my settings and go to the apps that
Settings.
way. So you can search apps or find apps. So then
if I tap on one, say our
Like
Champaign Public Library, here we go. Yep, you're right. Okay. So that's a good way. You go to settings and then you go to apps. And then you select your app and it should pull up another menu. So it looks like this is saying disable rather than uninstall. So I'll have to look into the difference between disable and uninstall.
I think with uninstalled, it's removed from the device altogether, but if it's disabled, it's still in the device, but it's not functioning or enabled. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
I wonder if it's because maybe these apps came on the device. Like for instance, Excel maybe was on here already. And that's why it says disable.
right.
That would be my guess. Because if I go to like Instagram, it's letting me uninstall.
Yeah,
So
I don't know
I'll make
about iPhones, but the same thing. I've had a lot of preloaded apps on my device when I first got them. So
yeah,
I
there's a couple
understand.
apps on mine that I don't use, like stocks and like, I don't know, there's a couple on there that I don't really use. But yeah, what I usually do is I just kind of tap and hold and then hit uninstall. Or like Jordan was saying, you go to settings and then you'll go down to apps and then you'll tap on your app and then tap uninstall and that will remove it. Okay, let's go back home. Okay, so now we've learned how to move apps and delete apps. Let's talk about how to get apps on your device. So if you're on an Android device, you're going to go to the Google Play Store, which for us is right here at the top. It kind of looks like a play button, like an arrow. Well, let me lower that a little bit. It's a sort of a colorful looking arrow. Depending on your software you have or your device, yours may look slightly different, but for us, it looks like that. And it says Play Store right underneath. So I'm going to tap on that. And of course, we were just in here, so we're on apps right now, but you can go between these menus at the bottom. If you're wanting to look for an app to install, you'll go to the app menu. And then of course we can either browse, so we can browse for an app to get, or we can search. So maybe we're searching for, I know we already have it, but we can search for Libby, for instance. Now ours says open because we already have it on our device. Let's find an app that is not already on our device and see if we can. Yes, okay. So Canva is a pretty popular app. We even use this here at the library. If you don't already have it, it's going to say install, and you would just tap on that. And now our download is pending. Looks like it's going to download in a second. Once that's done, your open button should light up green, and then you can open the app right from there. If your app costs money, it should tell you how much it costs. Let's see if we can find one that costs money. Featured apps. Let's see, categories. Most of these are free. Let me see if I can find something that's, is that one? Nope. It should tell you how much money it costs. Instead of saying install, it'll probably say like the amount. Here we go. So for instance, this Super Robot Brothers, it's $3.99. Yes, so it's got that price there. And of course that will charge your account. So usually when you set up a device and you start downloading through the Google Play Store, it might ask you for a payment. So it may ask you for a credit card. But yes, of course, if I were to tap on that $3.99 button, it may have me log in or enter my password for my device or for my Google account in order for me to download that app. And of course, with some apps, it may let you download the app for free, but it may eventually require you to pay for extra features. So portions of the app might be free, but for certain features, you may have to pay. So keep that in mind. I know that's true on Apple devices, and I'm sure that's true for Android devices as well. Any questions about the apps? It's not the App Store, it's the Play Store. Any questions about the Play Store?
Someone is asking, please give some tips on how to avoid malicious apps.
Sure. So there's a couple ways to kind of tell what, for me, what is a good app and what's a bad app. So first thing what is I will do a search on the app. So if you're unsure of an app, I will actually just Google search it and I'll check and see who's developing the app, what people are saying about the app. Because if it's an app that's made by a developer, maybe you're not familiar with, or maybe you look up the developer and they're not credible, or they've been known to put out things that are malicious, then you might find out that way. Let's jump into an app and see if I can find it on here. Let me see if, here we go. So I use this Merlin Bird ID as an example. But for us, when you do a search, you can always get more information about the app by tapping on it before you download it. So it will tell you the developer. So this one is Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So to me, that's already good because Cornell is developing it, right? You can contact them directly. So if you have a question about their app, you can get to their website. And usually what also helps me is seeing the reviews. So I'll check out the reviews of an app before I'll download it. And I'll also see how many reviews it has. So it looks like this one has 15,243 reviews, and they're mostly positive. So to me, that's saying that's a pretty good app. You'll see also there's over 1 million downloads. So to me, if this was a malicious app, that would be a lot of downloads. Usually malicious apps are not as used. You won't find as many reviews, or they'll all be bad reviews. Like with a popular app like this, I feel confident using it. But if it's maybe got like 4 reviews and they're all bad, and you maybe notice there's not a lot of downloads, I might be a little suspicious about it. And of course, I would definitely do a search on the developer of the app and just see what information is out there. That's what I usually go by. Now with the Google Play Store, it's more open to developers of apps than the Apple App Store. The Apple App Store kind of vets apps before they come onto their platform, but with Android, it's not the same. So you may want to do a little more research before you download an app that you're unsure of. I hope that helps answer your question. I'm sure that there's a couple more. Jordan, do you have any things that you look out for when you're downloading an app?
Pretty much the same thing. A lot of the apps I think I like are very popular because I just borrowed them from others. But no, I agree with everything you've said. And they said thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I think if you, let's see if there's any more stuff. See all reviews. There may be more information here. Let's see. So it looks like it's giving us a little description of the app. Some apps will also say what information they're using. App permissions. So the app permissions is basically like if it asks for your location, for instance, or like information that it's using on your phone. So that might be useful as well. Like if you're on an app and it's using your location and you're like, well, what does it need my location for? If it's just a coloring app, why does it need that? I would be a little suspicious. But of course, this one's a Merlin photo or bird ID. So it may need the location to kind of coordinate where you are to identify something. But yeah, I would be suspicious if it was using something that didn't make any sense for the app. All right, unless there's any more questions about installing apps, we'll move on.
No questions at the moment.
All right, let me go back home. So there is one more thing I want to cover today, and that is something called widgets. So widgets are sort of like an app that you can kind of put on your home screen that will give you sort of a quick access to information. So for instance, you can get a weather widget or a calendar widget, and that will kind of give you a quick preview of something without actually having to open the app. So widgets, let me actually see if we have some. Yes, here we go. So it looks like we have a widget for, let me lower this a little bit. We have a widget for Hoopla, and we have a weather widget on here. So you see our weather and the Hoopla widget. And these are also customizable. So you can customize the size and the placement of widgets. So let's talk about how to add those on. So basically what you're going to do is from any home screen, you'll tap and hold on an empty spot. So let's tap and hold on an empty spot on our home screen here and see what happens. So now what's coming up is a screen where we can select something. So for us, we're going to do widgets. And that's going to pop up a menu that we can browse widgets that we can add. And then we can select it and decide what size we want. So let me find a widget that we can add. Oh, looks like there's an overdrive widget. Let's add a widget for clock. That's a pretty simple one to do. I already have the weather one on there. Otherwise, I would have added that one. But let's add a clock. So let's go ahead and tap on that. And then it's going to allow me to decide sort of what it's going to look like. And this number here next to the description is going to be how much space it takes up. So 2x1, 2x2, 2x1, or 4x1. So that would be 4 spaces in a row and 1 space in a column, or 2x2 square. So let's do the 2x2 one. So we're going to touch and hold, and then we're going to decide where we want it. Let's do in the top corner. See how it's taking up a 2x2 space also. So keep that in mind. And then I'm going to let go. And then it's going to be up there in the top corner. I can hit the home button, and now it will be stationary. So that's kind of a quick little preview of the time. Now, of course, I have the time up here in the corner, but some people, you know, maybe they want their weather app. I know on my iPhone, I have widgets as well, and I like to have a weather widget just because it's really easy to just quickly see that. I can see the temperature without having to open up the app. Let's actually put the weather widget on the front page here. I'm going to tap. Let me see if we can move that. Okay, so that looks like a 4x1 since it's taking up a large space. Let me see if I can lower it. Oh, that's kind of cool. You can change the size, so then I can maybe put some other apps up here. And of course, this will rearrange all the apps that you already have on your device, so keep that in mind as well. Oops. But you'll see up there, I have my weather, quick access to what temperature is, and I can tap on that, and it should bring me to more information about the weather. So yeah, I recommend widgets if you kind of want like that quick access. And of course, you can add them to any screen. So it looks like this Hoopla one is on the second home screen we have. And I can take that off. I just tap and hold and remove from home. Oop, let me Hoopla widget's kind of dark, so it kind of throws off the brightness. So all I did was did a tap and hold on the Hoopla widget, and I can hit remove from home if I want to delete that off of there. Now it's not going to delete the app, it's just going to delete that widget. So then I can go home. And now it's off of my app. Now I don't have it there on the second screen. Any questions about widgets?
I don't see any questions right now.
Okay. And yeah, of course, you don't have to add widgets. They're not a requirement. They're kind of just an extra setting that people like, or extra feature, I guess. Let's see if it can even make that smaller. I wish it didn't have that little updated thing. That would be nice. All right, I think that pretty much covers everything I had today, unless anybody had a more specific question or wanted me to demonstrate something again.
So yeah, feel free to enter your questions into the chat or raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can speak and ask your question.
Yeah, let me jump back into my PowerPoint as well. We do have a couple of links for some additional resources. So let me see if I can jump into those. Photoshop is weird when you get into Zoom. It doesn't let you jump to the one you want to go to.
Mhm.
All right. So Google has an Android help page that I've linked there. And usually if you have a specific brand device, they will also have a help page. So for instance, Samsung or LG or something like that, they will usually have their own help page for your specific device, because of course Android could be any one of those brands. There's also a website called gcflearnfree.org, which is a super useful sort of tutorial-based website. So it gives you sort of basics on things like Android. It also has basics for if you're trying to learn just about computers, or it even has like a typing course you can kind of take on there. So yeah, Android Basics is on there. That's kind of some of the stuff we've based these handouts on, is what's on GCF Learn Free, and they're super useful. So I see a question that says, how can I save something to an SD card on my Samsung? I think it would depend on your device. I know that sometimes if you go to save something, you have the option to put it on your SD card, like as you're in the process of saving it. But let me see if I can find out. I'm not a Samsung or an Android user. So let's see if I can find out. And this may depend on what type of device you have as well. So you're talking about how to move something that you already have on your device? I'm guessing.
They're saying yes.
Okay. Let me see. I think it depends on the device.
I think it also depends on the app as well. I'm trying to find here. It's saying if, like, say for your camera, you'd go into the settings and check into your storage. I'm trying to see if that's the case here. We're all learning together.
Yes. Let me see if I can find out on this.
Let's see here. Thank you all for your patience. We might have to get back to it. I'm trying to, I see the, I'm just not, and I know every Android is different, but
let me switch over my video and see if we can, because it, according to a website I was looking at, it says if you go into your settings, so we're on our settings, let me lower the brightness a little bit. And we go down to apps. And then we look for my files. So this is just listing all of our apps, my files. And then you may have something in here that says like my device or storage. We don't have an SD card in here, so I don't think we have the capability of moving something over. So I may not be able to show you, but I can look up information and send it to you. But usually what you can do is you can select what you want to move over and then select your SD card. So check in your My Files under the apps, under My Apps, under settings, and see what that's showing you. And what I would do is just use a test file. So maybe take a picture of something that you're not worried about losing, just as a test, and see if you can move that over to your SD card and see if that works. That way you're not worried about losing something you might want. Because you may be, experiencing something slightly different than mine. I wouldn't want to tell you the wrong thing, but I can send you some info after class as well. I hope that helps answer your question or gets you there, get you started.
yeah, what I'm finding is I have an SD card, but it's talking to me about, it's this whole external storage transfer thing, but apparently I haven't really set up my Samsung account right there because I default to my Google World. So that's just my personal preference. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that also depends on your defaults too, for sure. Because most of the stuff I think will default to saving to the device, and then it goes to the SD card if it's like full. But I think you can have a default to the SD card. There's probably a million ways to do it, but I can look up and let me write this down. I can look up and see if there's any like step-by-step way that you can do that.
And then someone's asking, can you go over widgets again and how to get the clock or get to the clock?
Okay. So is that get to the clock widget or get to just the regular clock on your device?
I'm sorry, somebody added a comment to the SD card. They said defaulting to the SD mini card would be great. So thank you for Rebecca for following up on that. And then I think they're talking about the clock widget.
Okay.
Because I've helped a lot of people because the clock on these are really small. So I'm guessing that person can clarify if needed.
Yeah, let's do a demo of how to add that again. So to add a widget, all I'm going to do is tap and hold on an empty area. So I'm just going to tap and hold right here. And now this menu comes up where I can select widgets. So right here at the bottom. And then I have a number of widgets that come up. I can search for a widget. So maybe I'm searching for clock. And then I have my clock come up here, top left. And then I have the option to choose what type of clock I want. So maybe I want to do this one here. And then it says touch and hold widget to move it. Okay, I'm going to touch and hold. And now I'm going to put it down in the corner here. But of course I could put it anywhere. I could put it right underneath this weather if I wanted to. And I'm going to let go. It looks like it automatically opened, but let me go back here. Huh. Oh, okay. I think what I did is I selected the alarm clock. So let me touch and hold. Clock. Let me do a regular clock. And then I can decide how I want it to look, customize, hit my home button. Why isn't it showing up there? That's weird. Let me delete one of these. Widget settings. Let me delete the weather one and see what happens. Huh. Let me try that again. Widgets, clock, digital clock. There we go. I can turn that on from there if I wanted to. So yeah, all I'm doing is tapping and holding on a blank space and then selecting widgets and then selecting the widget I want and then moving it where I want. So let's do a weather one. I want this one. There we go. And of course it does take practice. It takes me practice to move stuff around just because, I don't know, I'm not as dexterous. And of course I can tap it to get into my, looks like alarm settings or world clock. Does that help answer your question about widgets?
I think so. I haven't heard back yet, but.
And I can put more information about widgets, and we have information in the handout as well, but I'll link to some stuff on widgets as well in the email.
All right, any more questions? Rebecca, that was great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Sharing all that great information is very helpful.
I'm also sharing, I have to filter through all these again, sharing the upcoming classes. So
Yes.
Let's go here. So next week we're going to cover Kindles. So if you have a Kindle or you're interested in getting one, it might be useful to attend that class as well. We're going to be covering Kindle Paperwhite and Kindle Fire. And then in November, we have our ebook classes and some internet classes. So we have Intro to Online Shopping, and then we have our e-library classes where we're going to cover Libby, Hoopla, Canopy. So if you're interested in the library apps that we have for getting books or movies or music, we also have magazines as well. You can take those two classes that will cover all of that. And then we have Getting Started with the Internet Part 1, and that's going to follow into Internet Part 2 in December. We don't have those hammered out for dates yet, but that will be coming soon. And then I think that's pretty much it. I have Susan's info here, but you can also email me. I can put my email in the email or call any of us really and ask questions if you have them after class. Let me put my email here. So feel free to email me or Susan. You can also email the library as a whole. If you email librarian@champaign.org, that will go to our reference desk, and the lovely people out there will help answer your question as well. And of course, you can always call us too. Feel free to call. We troubleshoot and ask questions or answer questions quite often over the phone. So if that's more comfortable for you, we can do that as well. And then I think there's another slide in here. Yes, we still have our Book a Librarian service going on. So if you wanted to book a one-on-one consultation, like you wanted to have a more in-depth question answered, or you needed help with something one-on-one, you can do a Book a Librarian if you visit champaign.org/bookalibrarian, and you'll fill out the form and one of our staff members will be in contact. And I think that's pretty much it. Let me stop my share here, switch my video.
And someone's saying, I really enjoy your classes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I don't see
Yes.
any more questions or comments. Last call.
Yeah, and of course, before we go as well, this recording will be sent out in email. So if you want to revisit it, feel free afterwards when you have that email. We'll also send the handout. So what we've covered today. I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, well, I think, someone's asking, can we save those recordings?
So the recordings are up on YouTube. They can't be saved, but I don't expect that we'll take those down anytime soon. And of course, we always have the handouts. We do go over these classes pretty frequently as well. I think we do them once a season. So we have a summer, fall, spring. So at least once a season, we try to cover one of these topics.
Yeah, they didn't realize it's on YouTube. Yes, it's available on the library's YouTube channel.
Yes, if you go to champaign.org/YouTube, you should be able to find it.
And someone else is saying, thank you for the info. Glad you're doing a recording to send out. Okay, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar if that's okay with you, Rebecca.
Yep.
All right, I hope everyone enjoys their afternoon. Take
Thank you,
care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.